Thank you. Mr. Heath has withdrawn his delegation, so we move on to correspondence. And the first item is a report from the Integrity Commissioner and Mr. Abrams and his associate, Ms. Patkowski. Councillor Nagu will fix my correction on that one. I wish everyone was Smith and Jones, but they're not. So, Madam Clerk, do we have the Integrity Commissioners on the line?
I am here, Your Worship.
Oh, hi, Janice.
Jeff is not here this evening, Jeff Abrams, but I am here.
Okay, great.
We'll be speaking to this.
Okay, the information is listed under correspondence, and it's my understanding that you want to give a summary of your report process and findings, and then we'll have an opportunity for questions of the delegate. I don't want to get into debate about the report because we'll be doing that after we excuse our delegation from the process of a presentation. So, Janice, there's no time limit. This isn't a delegation in the typical sense of 5 minutes. So take your time in terms of the message that you want to give to us. And councillors, I will start a question list, but let's let our Integrity Commissioner speak to their work. So please go ahead, Janice.
Thank you, Mayor Ash, and thank you, Council, for making time to hear from myself this evening. And Jeff Abrams extends his apologies. He's not able to be with us this evening, but in any event, I will provide you with some brief overview comments regarding the report. And I guess I would start out by, I was pleased to see the acknowledgement of the conflict of interest that Councillor Robinson has, and I was simply going to confirm that, yes, Councillor Robinson has a conflict. However, under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, she may certainly participate in consideration of the report, although she may not, as she's indicated, she may not vote on the sanction. So I'm simply reiterating what apparently she is aware of, so that's great. I wanted to also reference that, receiving an Integrity Commissioner's report is always a difficult mode for Council to be in, because Council is, in receiving this report, really operating in a disciplinary mode. That is something that's a little bit unusual for Council. Council rarely operates in a disciplinary mode. It's a challenging role for Council because it's sitting and hearing a report with respect to the conduct of one of its colleagues around the table. So it's important to recognize that the role of Council is not to reinvestigate a complaint, not to perform a hearing, if you will, with respect to an investigation report, but rather simply to hear the findings of the Integrity Commissioner and then decide whether the recommended sanction is appropriate. That's the role of Council in hearing and receiving an Integrity Commissioner's report. In this regard, we have provided what we believe is justification in terms of the support for the findings and support for where we have landed on the appropriate sanction, although that piece is entirely in Council's hands. The complaint flows from the report flows from multiple complaints received May 10th and 11th of 2023, following a post by Councillor Robinson on social media alleging that that the post was an attack targeting 3 identified individual residents for opposing her minor variance application. To be clear, the post is one in which she announced the cancellation of her haunted Halloween event after a dozen years and sarcastically thanked these 3 named residents for their neighborly kindness. That's in quotes. And the allegation is that the post was inciting her supporters to attack these residents on social media and that it was an act of intimidation. And there's a further complaint on a separate matter that personal contact information of attendees at a town hall meeting was collected by the councillor's mother, allegedly then used for real estate solicitations. So I will not drag you chapter and verse through the report. I would expect that you've all read it, probably more than once, but certainly I would expect you've all read it once. We hope that the report speaks for itself. It's fairly concise. We find that her post can be seen as inviting others to falsely blame 3 individuals as in an attempt to really target them for social media attacks by her followers. Her sarcastic remark has to be recognized as a bully tactic. It demonstrates a flagrant disregard for the well-being of others. And we note in the report that there was an incident that occurred in March of 2023, reported in the media quite publicly, where a previous post by the councillor to her personal Facebook was then screenshot and circulated, and that was having been reported quite publicly. We think it does not lie in her mouth to claim that she believes posting to a personal Facebook is some kind of firewall that limits access of information to only friends and family who are permitted access to that. It's clear that there's a history where these things become screenshot and circulate publicly. So it's simply not credible that that is really a proper defense. We find that it really does breach the code of conduct. It fails to treat members of the public with dignity and respect and without abuse, bullying, and intimidation. And so therefore, we are recommending a sanction. In regard to the collection and retention of constituent personal information, we find that that did in fact occur. The information has been turned over to the city. However, it does constitute a breach. We do find, though, that it's a bit of a rookie mistake. The councillor's a new member this term, and we think that the takeaway is clear that that's not to occur again. In terms of the range of sanctions available for us to recommend to you under the Municipal Act, as you may be aware, we can recommend from a reprimand up to a 90-day suspension of pay. We think, in light of the demonstration of a complete lack of contrition and a complete refusal to acknowledge the legitimacy of the complaints or the complainant's concerns, and the retreat to the position of it was simply a sarcastic remark, fails to recognize the seriousness of the behavior. And so we are recommending, in this instance, a 30-day suspension of pay. We think that at a minimum, this report should reflect the principle that elected officials must avoid this kind of bully tactic behavior. In regard to how a sanction, should it be imposed by council, would be implemented, the sanction would include salary only, not benefits. It should take effect with the period following council's adoption of the recommendation. And it would be our recommendation that it should be interpreted as meaning a suspension of pay that would otherwise be received in the 2 pay periods that occur following the meeting. In other words, we would not think it appropriate to split it out over time and stretch it out. So those would be our thoughts, and I'm pleased to respond to questions if there are any.
Thank you, Janice, for your presentation tonight. I'm going to allow questions and questions only of Janice and to her and Jeffrey's report. I don't want to get into back and forth or debate. about the sanctions or the findings, but if you have questions about the findings, be happy to do that. And if we don't have questions of the integrity report, we'll go to the recommendations. So is there questions? Councillor Brenner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Janice, for what must have been a very difficult process to reach the outcome that you have. The question that I do have is, and in your report you reference, and I guess I'm going to try and paraphrase when you reference the rationale for why the sanctions. I'm wondering, in terms of, I guess, other municipalities, have you found that there have been these type of concerns through other code of conducts that I believe that that you're also involved in for other municipalities, save and except Pickering? I don't know if I posed a question right, but I guess it's just to get a feel for what are you seeing in terms of how it compares.
So through the mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Brenner. It's a good question. From our vantage point, and we, as you know, serve over 50 municipalities, as well as a few other public bodies. We do get a bit of a perspective on sort of the continuum or the degree of sanctions that are being imposed or that are being recommended by integrity commissioners. And I would say two things. One is that we see that in some instances, it's sort of an all or nothing. It's the big hammer. It's 90 days, boom, or it's a reprimand. And we really try, our firm really tries to find the balance so that not everything is at the far end, given that 90 days is the extreme. We try to find a balanced approach so that, as has been said, the code must have teeth. There must be a consequence for matters that are particularly concerning, but we try to look at it in the perspective of where does this really fall? So it's much more art than science. There isn't a sort of a tariff, if you will. We think that where there's something that really is, let's say, inexcusable and ought not to have happened, then a sanction is really invoked. It's warranted. There ought to be a sanction. It's not something that should be condoned or excused. But still, there's an opportunity for a takeaway. We always aim for course correction. Our constant drumbeat is, can we get better behavior? Can people understand on council what is and isn't acceptable for our elected leaders? And so we look to opportunities for councillors to redeem themselves. So this is not that egregious 90 days, that we look at this as there's a strong takeaway, a sanction is clearly warranted, it's inexcusable, but we would think 30 days would be an appropriate place to land. So I don't know if that helps.
No, it does, and I really appreciate your response, and I guess the spectrum that you use to arrive at the recommendation, and I thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Those were my questions.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions of the Integrity Commissioner? Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hello.
Good evening.
I have a couple of questions here. Do you recognize free speech?
Well, that's an interesting philosophical question, Councillor. Through the mayor, we could certainly start a whole dialogue on that this evening. Of course, there is free speech. There are limitations.
Let's not. That's not a question of the presentation or the findings of the report. So, Councillor, if you have another question, Please move forward.
Mr. Mayor, but I would like to beg to differ because it does have to do with the findings of the report, because I am going to later on, when I give my little speech, let's say, it has to do with, recognizing free speech is one of them. So
well, I've given you my ruling, so move on with your questions, please.
Okay, then. Do you believe in the freedom of expression?
I think that would have the same task that I've given you already. So please move forward.
All right. Could you please tell me where in my post do I actually accuse the three men of being the reason for the cancellation of my haunt?
Through the mayor, again, I think, Councillor, we've tried to lay out in the report our perspective on that, our findings, if you will. We do find that it's a sarcastic and well, one might call it a passive-aggressive bully tactic. So we're calling it that.
Okay. No, I understand that's what you're calling it, but my question to you, and I'll say it again. Where in my post do I actually accuse these three men as being the reason for the cancellation of my haunt? Because I don't see anywhere.
Councillor, the question was asked. I think the answer was given, so you don't have to ask it again. Please move on. Okay,
I was just hoping to get the correct, response to a question instead of, another dialogue. Okay, where in my post does it mention that these three men had anything to do with opposing me on my minor variance application?
Through the mayor, again, we looked at the facts and we draw a conclusion. And Councillor, you may not agree with that. It's not a criminal trial. This is not the criminal code. We're not required to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. Certainly on a balance of probabilities, we think our inferences would stand up. We're making these findings regarding your post.
Yes, regarding my post, when I was thanking for these three men for their neighborly kindness, I had a lot of people reach out to me thinking that these three people did something great, that they were helping me out. So, I know it was sarcastic, perhaps a cheeky remark. We do know that. But again, for anybody reading this post without the context around it, people actually thought that this was a genuine post where I was thanking these three gentlemen. And that's why I was trying to get the answer out of you. Like, where does it say in my post where I'm actually equating these three men? So people are going to come after them and bully them or intimidating, as you say, because nowhere in the post does it equate these men to it.
Councillor, the question's been asked. Mm-hmm. The answer was given. Please move on to your next question.
Okay, I guess my next question is going to be, do you feel that your position is of judge, jury, and executioner?
Through the mayor? No, absolutely not. I think we've been crystal clear throughout that ours is an obligation to investigate and make findings of fact, and then to apply the code of conduct to those facts. That's our obligation.
Okay, and throughout this, is it the city of Pickering that pays your salary, like your salary as well?
The answer is obvious, yes.
Yes, I'm just wondering now for my next question is that, do you find that is a conflict of interest when, the city of Pickering has something to benefit from this?
Through the mayor, no, Councillor, we could have a long discussion about the role of independent accountability officers, and perhaps there's a great deal that I could inform you of, but suffice to say, no, it's not a conflict of interest.
Okay, I had actually asked you also for the evidence, and you had numerous times actually asking for evidence showing where this was bullying or intimidating these three men, and you had refused to give it to me. Do you think possibly you can get me some evidence on this, that this is bullying and intimidation?
Counselor, if I could help, because the report speaks to the facts as are known, and the integrity commissioner comes to some conclusion. I think she's demonstrated why they came to that conclusion. I think the evidence, as you talk to, are outlined in the report. You might disagree that it's ironclad, but there is a commentary in there in regards to what the social media posts were and the background about the Committee of Adjustment variance. So that's their findings. So.
Right, but if we're just talking within the particular post, there is absolutely no evidence showing that, that this had anything to do with the three men and the Committee of Adjustments application. That I have no evidence showing that, that they were opposing me in any way. So, if you're going to make these accusations towards me in the report, then, I just want to see the evidence, because seeing just the post by itself, it doesn't mention anything. And like I said, I had numerous people reach out to me thinking that this was a genuine post. So I just wanted to see the evidence on which you were basing this judge, jury, and executioner on me.
Again,
moving on.
The background and context are outlined on page 88 and 89. And if that's the evidence from a layperson reading it, you might have a different conclusion, and I accept that, Councillor Robinson. So let's move on with the questions to the Integrity Commissioner presentation or the report, but let's not debate the report itself.
So I can't debate the evidence because there is none.
No, I didn't say that. I said let's not. You can question the Integrity Commissioner and question the information in the report, but we're not. Mm-hmm. We're not getting into the debate about sanctions and the like. That'll be done when we get to the report itself.
Oh no, I wasn't going to debate the sanction or anything. I didn't even mention that, Mr. Mayor. My next question is, what is the Black's Law Dictionary definition of bullying?
Through the Mayor, Councillor Robinson, honestly, I don't have that memorized off the top of my head. 35 years as a lawyer, I didn't memorize that particular definition. What we've looked at is quite a bit of case law under harassment and bullying and respectful workplace, and we're quite familiar with those concepts. And I think that perhaps dictionary definitions aren't as helpful as sometimes the broader perspective of common sense and impacts on others.
Right.
So I think that's what I would commend to your consideration. The impact on others of comments doesn't necessarily get translated into the Black's Law Dictionary.
Right, but if this was a court of law, we would be using the Black's Law Dictionary.
And it is not.
Right.
It is not a court of law.
Okay, please, I give you the free way to speak. Please allow me to do so as well, Ms. Atwood. So in the Black's Law Dictionary, a bully is a cruel person who uses physical strength and verbal intimidation to frighten or hurt someone who is weaker. Could you please tell me where in my post where I say thank you for your neighborly kindness that this equates to frightening or hurting someone who is weaker than me, when this is directed to three men saying again, thank you for your neighborly kindness?
Again, through the Mayor, I think that a fair reading of the report will probably give you all of those answers. And I commend you to that report again, Councillor Robinson. It may be that if you put your law dictionary down for a few minutes and think about what the message might be from this report, it's possible that you might have a takeaway from this report that might be meaningful. These are real people. Those people that you named are real people with real lives who indeed had real concerns. You may dismiss that, but that is certainly our finding.
Well, thank you, Ms. Atwood. But a sarcastic remark is not one of the.
Councillor, let's continue with the question.
I'm now going into our own bylaws underneath, I think it is 5.01, which is underneath bullying and intimidation. The word sarcasm or sarcastic remark is not in there. And that's why I am trying to ask the question. So my next question then would have to do with the Black's Law Dictionary for intimidation. Do you know what that one is? I mean, because if you're going to say sarcastic remarks is bullying or intimidation, then we need to know what the definition of bullying is, and we need to know what the definition of intimidation is in order to try and sanction me on these words. Because if we're going to blur the words, this is very, very important, because now this does border on my freedom of speech and my freedom of expression.
I think Councillor.
I'm going to ask her again about the
Miss Atwood has indicated that she's not in a court of law. She didn't, and although she might recall her law class of some years ago, that wasn't taken into account in the writing of the report. So please move on with your questions. And I'd ask for you to do it in a respectful manner. She is an independent officer of us, and I think it's important that we maintain the dialogue in a respectful manner, that we can get through this most difficult process for not only you, Councillor, which I recognize, but also for your colleagues on council, as well as the Integrity Commissioner. So please do so and move forward on your questions.
I really do hope, Mr. Mayor, that you don't think that I'm being disrespectful in any way. You know, I am just asking questions of Miss Atwood. That's all. So could you please tell me then, how did I bully these three people? These three men?
So, Mayor, again, I don't want to take us tooth and nail through the report. I could sit here and read from the report if that would help. But Councillor Robinson, I highly commend you to sit down and read the report and contemplate. Maybe, perhaps, there are some takeaways to be gleaned from this report that might help guide future conduct. And that's really all I would say at this point. I don't know that you don't need to continue to ask all of your questions. I'm not sure where they will lead. The report speaks for itself. It really is in council's hands as to whether council believes that the sanction is appropriate or not. Certainly, it appears, again, to be underscored that there's absolutely no acknowledgement that there could have been any consequence or impact to others from the post that was made. And so this certainly played into our determination that an appropriate sanction to recommend was 30 days. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that there's anything further I can add.
Well, that's why I was trying to ask the questions, because I've read the report thoroughly, and so has my legal representative. We've read it numerous times, and nowhere do I find any evidence that points to bullying or intimidation.
Okay. We're getting into the findings again. So yeah. Do you have any other questions for the Integrity Commissioner? Because I really want to move forward with their agenda tonight.
Yes, so I guess in the end, you're equating this to a sarcastic remark. And again, where in our code of conduct do we use the word sarcastic remark in order to have this fall underneath bullying and intimidation?
I think the question's been asked and answered. Please move on, Councillor. And my patience is running a little thin here, so I want to get to the end of your questioning so we can move forward.
Well, I think that's really the end of my questioning, since I'm not getting the answers that I was asking for. So thank you very much for your indulgence, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Atwood.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions of committee? Okay. We'll go back to my agenda here. We've dealt with the report. A motion would be in order. Councillor Cook?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to bring forth a motion, please. If I could ask our city clerk to pull up the motion I prepared this evening, if that's possible. Otherwise, I can just read it. It's pretty short.
Councillor, do you have it?
We do have it, Mayor Ash. If you could just give us a moment, we'll get it posted.
Yeah, we got it. Okay. It's moved by Councillor Cook. A second. Is there a seconder?
Yes, I have a seconder, and that's Councillor Brenner.
Okay, and it reads as following. The report of the Integrity Commissioner is contained in correspondence 2823 pertaining Councillor Lisa Robinson received, and in accordance with the Integrity Commission report Commissioner report recommendations, the salary and remuneration paid Councillor Robinson be suspended for a period of 30 days. Open quote, 2 pay periods, close quote, commencing on the next scheduled pay period. Councillor Cook, that's duly moved to second. Debate. Councillor Cook, do you have any comments?
I'll just keep it very brief. Really, this motion is the enablement for us to receive the Integrity Commissioner's report as prepared and received by the city and by Councillor Robinson, having found that the principles of procedural fairness that was guided by the complaint process has been set out under the Code of Conduct. As the report notes, Councillor Robinson was given due process to respond to the complaint, and Councillor Robinson has defended her conduct throughout, again, even this evening with our debate. And as noted in the Integrity Commissioner's analysis and findings, that as a councillor, it should be recognized as a bullying tactic, and it does show a flagrant disregard for the well-being of others. That is not my line. That is directly from the report. And as it is the Integrity Commissioner's review, that social posts of this nature may intimidate and discourage others from expressing views which do not align with the councillor's particular views for fear of being singled out with additional attacks on social media. I do believe that we have an obligation as a transparent and impartial council to accept and uphold the findings as presented in the Integrity Commissioner's report, and that's why I've brought forward this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Any other councillors? Councillor Robinson? Under our new procedure bylaws, you have 5 minutes for debate.
Am I debating this motion right now, Mr. Mayor? For 9.1, is this where I debate this and I can speak to it?
Yes. Okay. We've asked questions of the Integrity Commissioner. Now we're into dealing with the recommendation. So we're in the debate stage.
Thank you. Okay.
I'll start the clock now. So please proceed.
Okay, perfect. So today we are addressing matters of utmost importance, the meaning of integrity, the right to freedom of expression, and the impartiality of the Integrity Commissioner. The Commissioner has concluded that I violated the Code of Conduct by using sarcasm. Let me repeat that. By using sarcasm in a post on my private Facebook page. This post supposedly had the effect of bullying and intimidation 3 men who had spoken against my request for a variance for my annual Halloween celebration. The post reads as follows. Tonight, it is with great sadness that I announce this year's Robinson Charity Haunt in Corn Maze will have to be canceled. A big thank you to adult male number 1, adult male number 2, adult male number 3, and for your neighborly kindness. First, let me point out that I do not even mention the variance decision, much less connect these 3 gentlemen to it. Further, I did not say that anything they said or did led me to cancel my annual Halloween celebration. I have made repeated requests for evidence supporting the allegations that my post made these men feel bullied and intimidated, but no evidence has been produced. The commissioner will not disclose the names of the complaints or the factual basis for their complaints, so no one knows whether any of these men actually lodged a complaint, because for all we know, the complainants are people using the code of conduct to register objections to my political opinions in my effort to shut me down my right for freedom of expression. Even if I were to accept the commissioner's view that my Facebook post was sarcastic, there is nothing wrong with that. As a paralegal, I can advise that the Supreme Court of Canada has held that the state cannot regulate expression simply because some people find it offensive. In this country, we have something more than the right to freedom of speech. We have the right to freedom of expression. That means each one of us is free to express what we think and how we feel. Sarcasm and other forms of emotive expression are protected, even if others find our words unpleasant or disagreeable. As well, the court has held that the government may not shut down expression based on a concern that it might cause harm. Hypothetically, yet this is what has happened here. The commissioner is concerned that my sarcastic post might expose someone to bullying or intimidation at the hands of others at some indefinite future point. Ultimately, the commissioner is playing word games in this report. In my reply, I provided the definition of a bully from the Black's Law Dictionary. A bully is a cruel person who uses physical strength and or verbal intimidation to frighten or hurt someone who is weaker. The commissioner didn't address whether my post met that definition. Instead, the report cites a simplistic definition taken from a children's dictionary to avoid facing the fact that my conduct does not meet the legal standard. Using Black's Law Dictionary, I also provided a definition of intimidation. The wrong of intimidation includes all those cases in which harm is inflicted by the use of unlawful threats, where the unlawful liberty of others to do as they please is interfered with. The commissioner completely ignored this definition in the report and failed to provide an alternative definition. Yet the report concludes that I have intimidated others. How is this possible? We are being asked to take the commissioner's word for it and that some people feel bullied and intimidated. But how can we know that that's true without a transparent examination of the facts? Furthermore, it is extremely disconcerting to observe a potential conflict of interest that the fact that the principal's integrity is financially supported by the corporation raises questions about the impartiality and the fairness. How can we expect a fair judgment when the very entity responsible for the commissioner's paycheck may have a stake in the outcome? In closing, I implore everyone present to reflect on what our words really mean. We must uphold the true meaning of words and refrain from blurring the lines. I would be very concerned if my colleagues voted in favor of this sanction when there is no supporting evidence and the use of sarcasm is falsely equated to bullying and intimidation. Thank you for your attention to this matter, and I trust that you will give serious consideration to voting against this sanction. And Madam Clerk, I would like to request a recorded vote, please. Thank you, Ms.
Councillor, you're not entitled to ask.
Well, maybe I would like to see if my colleagues would please ask for a recorded vote. I don't think anyone should have to hide the fact on how they're voting this evening. Thank you.
That's fine. I'll call for a recorded vote.
Thank you.
As we stand by, well, Mayor Ashmay has a technical difficulty.
Sorry, folks.
We can hear you now.
Okay, sorry, I'm back on my iPad. So, Councillor Kirk, were you asking for a recorded vote?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sorry, Councillor Robinson, I was cut off there by technology. Because you declared an interest, you're not allowed to ask for a recorded vote, but Councillor Cook has, so we'll go from there. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Cook.
Madam Clerk, can we do a roll, please?
Councillor Cook.
Yes.
Councillor Nagy.
Yes.
Councillor Brenner.
Yes.
Councillor Butt.
Yes.
Mayor Ash.
Yes.
Your Worship, that's carried unanimously.
Thank you very much.